Hi. I'm going to read a couple of verses here. Is what I'm going to be talking about today. Um, Luke 21. I've been looking at Luke 21, 25, Matthew 24 and 29, and Mark 13 and 24 and 25. Just looking at the three and what they say, and they're kind of sister chapters when it comes to those verses. So let's go Luke 21 and 25. And there shall be signs in the sun and the moon and in the stars and upon the earth distress of nations with perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring, men's heart failing them for fear, for looking after those things which are coming on the earth, for the powers of the heaven shall be shaken. And in verse 27, and then shall they see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory. So this is right before, this is what you can see. There's plenty of other things in that chapter that I'll break down as I back up, but I went to this section right here and I wanted to look at the sun and the moon and the stars and see what that meant. And I've been digging and studying, and this is what Jesus said right before his return. So I read this out of my mother's Bible. She passed away a little while back. So I'm going to look at, first, I was going to give you an idea why there's only few that are going to understand what I'm saying. There's only few that will even look at this video. And I'm just looking for the last 2 or 3 or 4. And it says that are the called. Now, I don't know that I'm one of them, but I'll tell you, there are those that are called that God knew before the foundations of the world. And they were predestined. They were prohorizo, predetermined for the horizon, the light. Okay? And this was taught back in the 1800s. This was what the Baptists taught. This is what it was taught in the Baptists when they first started growing here in the United States. This is what they taught. And then we have this, you wonder what the great falling away is? And I look at everybody talking about, well, we're going to have aliens. We're going to have people are just not going to believe in Jesus anymore. Well, tell you the truth, that the great falling away is here. Because back in the 1830s, 1850s, there was a big divide in the Baptists, because they came up with free will, and it wasn't that God was in charge anymore. And they fell away from the way the church taught for, the real church taught for 1800 years. So I'm going to tell you why. And I'm going to show you in the scriptures why most of you can't understand this. You won't understand this because God will not let you understand it. So this is like a prophecy for those who can see. I'm going to talk about this prophecy that Jesus spoke of. I'm going to compare the prophecies of Matthew, Mark, and Luke eventually as this series goes on. Because they had, in the first century, the Greeks, the Jews had idioms that we do not understand. We have idioms that they wouldn't understand. If you told them I'm cool, well, would they go get you a jacket? So you could, they think you're cool. Well, they have idioms, and I recently, and I've heard other preachers that I've listened to, but I have this book, A Key to Symbolic Language of Scriptures by Thomas Weems. I think that's how they pronounce his name. This is from 1840. This was produced in 1840, and they reproduced this book, and I stumbled upon it because I've got McClintock and Strong up there, and I was looking in that, and I found a reference to Mr. Weemus. Okay, so I went and looked him up, and I found this book, and it's very, very interesting. I agree with some of the things he says, a lot of what he says about this, and other things, I don't think he had a clue. But not everybody has a clue to everything in this Bible. So I'm going to start with Luke 21:25. These are the prophecies of the end time and right before the return of Jesus. Remember, Jesus said in Matthew 7:14, as a recap, why? You know, we're, these stupid preachers that get on there and say, we're going to save the world for Christ. Jesus says that's not true. And if your preacher says that, he's a liar. He is Antichrist. Okay? They said there are many Antichrists. Antichrist just means they don't agree with what Jesus says. They contradict him. Okay? Anyway, so I'm going to recap from the last couple of videos. Jesus said, because straight is the gate and narrow is the way which leads to life, and few there be that find it. He said right there, few are going to find the narrow way. Let that sink in. Few. That means very few of you, and maybe not even me. I don't know. So, I like I said last time, straight is the word stenos. It means many obstacles to either side of the gate. Narrow is the word thalibomone. Thalibo is the word tribulation, which means anguish, troubles, burdens, and sorrows. Meno means to endure, to stand, to stay, to continue. It means to continue to stand in tribulation. And the way is the word hodos. It means the road, a journey, and highway. So basically, and then if you look at what else Jesus said in Luke 13:24, strive to enter in at the straight gate, for many, I say unto you, will seek to enter in and shall not be able. But the shall not be able part is not what it is in the Greek. It says, strive to enter in at the straight gate, for many, I say to you, will seek to enter in and will not have strength. You won't have the strength that God gives the elect. So the word strive is agonizomai. It means to struggle, to fight, to labor fervently, to agonize, to undergo great mental anguish. It comes from agon, a contest, an effort of anxiety, conflict, contention, a fight. The arena in Rome was called the agon, the fight for life, a great struggle, a great mental anguish. So basically what he's saying, straight is the gate, stenos, because there are many obstacles to either side of that gate, obstacles in the minds of evil men and women that you will have to deal with and overcome. And your own sins you'll have to overcome. But only with God's help will the elect do that. Narrow is the way, the libomone in the hodos. You will have to endure, to stand the tribulations, the anguish, the sorrows in the hodos, your journey in this life, i.e., the road that the Lord has assigned you for Christ's sake. We are commanded to strive, to agonize, to struggle, to fight, to labor fervently in the hodos. We are commanded to strive against our own sins and the sins of our own countrymen. And we mourn those of you who can see their own sins and know what you've done in your past and you're ashamed of it. You mourn those sins. And Jesus said in Matthew 5:4, blessed are those that mourn, for they shall be comforted. Mourn. Penthos. It means to grieve, to wail, to grieve, to sorrow. And comforted here is the word parakaleo. It means to call near. It means when we strive and agonize against the many obstacles that are on either side of the hodos, the road that we have to travel, our journey, it is God that calls us near. God gives his elect the strength to endure, to enter into the narrow way, the libomone in the hodos. He gives us strength to endure tribulations on the road he chose for his elect. We struggle, we fight, we mourn our sin, past and present. God confronts us comforts us with understanding, i.e., the Holy Spirit, because the Holy Spirit is truth. You know, look that up. Look at John 14, 16, and 17. And I will pray the Father, and he shall give you another comforter, that he may abide with you forever. Verse in 17, it says, even is not in the scriptures. It says, and I will pray at the Father, and he shall give you another comforter, that he may abide with you forever, the Spirit of truth. Definite article, the. It means there's no other. Whom the world cannot receive, because it seeth him not, neither knoweth him. But you know him, for he dwelleth with you and shall be in you. John 15, 26. But when the Comforter is come, whom I will send unto you from the Father, the Spirit of truth, which proceedeth from the Father, he shall testify of me. John 16 and 13. Howbeit when he, the Spirit of truth, is come, he will guide you into all truth. For he shall not speak of himself, but whatsoever he shall hear, that shall he speak, and he will show you things to come. 1 John 5 and 6. And it is the Spirit that beareth witness, because the Spirit is truth. The Holy Spirit is the truth, your helper, the one that God called you near with his truth and comforts you. Let me keep going so I can get to this other scripture I wanted to cover. I said all of this so there won't be any misunderstanding. Few will understand what I'm talking about. Few, very few, will watch this video. 2 or 3 or 4, maybe even less. Few will understand what I'm about to say about prophecy. Starting with Luke. Now, I don't know if you know much about Luke. Luke was the only non-Jewish writer in the Bible. He was a physician, and he was very close to Paul. It is believed his writings were written to non-Jewish believers, and I agree with that assessment. So, let's look at Luke. We'll read through that one more time, and then we'll start taking it apart. Luke 21, 25 to 26. And there shall be signs in the sun and the moon and the stars, and upon the earth distress of nations with perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring. There are idioms right here in this that they understood. They spoke in idioms like that. Men's hearts failing them for fear of looking after those things which are coming on the earth, for the powers of heaven shall be shaken. There's idioms in this one too that you need to understand. This is a snapshot of the period of time before verse 27. Verse 27 says, and then shall they see the Son of Man coming in the clouds with power and great glory. This verse is the same as Revelation 19:11 through 16, which right here, Revelation 19:11 through 16. This is about Christ's return at the end of the world. And the beast system, Babylon, the system of self and wealth and let us make us a name, which the United States has been in charge of, it's going to be destroyed. So Revelation 19:11 through 16, speaking of when Jesus returned. And I saw heaven open, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat upon him was called Faithful and True, and in righteousness, and he doeth judge and make war. His eyes were as a flame of fire, and on his head were many crowns, and he had a name written that no man knew but he himself. And he was clothed with a vesture dipped in blood, and his name was called the Word of God. And the armies which were in heaven followed him upon white horses, clothed in fine linens, white and clean. And out of his mouth goeth a sharp sword, that with it he should smite the nations, and shall rule them with a rod of iron. And he treadeth the winepress of the fierceness of wrath of the Almighty. And he hath on his vesture and on his thigh a name written, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. This is the same picture you'll find in Revelation 14. It's the fall of Babylon, which in Revelation 6, you'll find it in Revelation 10, Revelations 11, Revelation 14, 16, 18, and 19. All those chapters about the fall of Babylon. We established this is the end right before Christ's return. Christ's return. So let's start breaking this stuff down from my studies and what I found out, because this is not all woo, these crazy people on here that have all these crazy dreams and use their imagination to come up with all kind of stupid stuff, when if you take the time to study and see how these people thought. And this guy from 1840, he had references that we don't have, that we couldn't find today. So I'm going to say, looking at 21:25, he says, "And then there shall be signs in the sun and the moon and in the stars." This is an idiom. It means something to those people. And in that day and a time, there are people that understood exactly what he said. I've told you what that book was. Now, in that book, I found the sun and the moon and the stars equals wherever the scene of government is laid, whether in a civil or ecclesiastical state, or in that of a single family. The sun, moon, and stars, when mentioned together, denote the different degrees of powers of governors in the same state. This is evident. This is interesting. This is evident in the relation to a single family from Joseph's dream in Genesis 37:10, when the sun, the moon, and the stars are interpreted by Jacob. Okay? So this can apply to governments, and it can apply all the way down to a single family, because this is what happened when Joseph told his dream. This is in Genesis 37:10. Joseph got rebuked by his father, and he told it to his father and to his brethren. And his father rebuked him and said unto him, "What is this dream that thou hast dreamed? Shall I and thy mother and thy brothers indeed come to bow down ourselves to thee, to the earth? To thee, to the earth?" But what was the dream? In Genesis 37:9, "Behold, I have dreamed a dream. More, and behold, the sun and the moon and the 11 stars made obedience to me." In other words, they bowed down. They paid homage. They had great respect for him. So his father knew exactly what the dream meant. He told his father, and he knew it was talking. The sun was him, the moon was his mother, and the 11 brothers were the stars. This is an idiom that they used back then. Let me keep going, because we're going to break this down. It was interpreted as Jacob, the head of his family, his wife, the next head as our guide, and his son were the lesser ones, the lesser lights. When speaking of kingdoms now, the king can be symbolized by the sun. The moon, the next to him in power. Stars would be the lesser rulers of inferior kingdoms. So we can say in the USA, the federal government is the sun. The moon would represent states. Stars would represent some smaller local governments or smaller cities outside of the state capitals. So with this understanding, we can understand better the next sentence, because he says that and then he tells you what it is in the next sentence. "And there shall be signs in the sun and in the moon and the stars, and upon the earth distress of nations. For with perplexity the sea and the waves roaring." So here, let's break down some words here. Signs, semiano, it makes an indication of things to come, something to indicate things. Perplexity, here is the word aporia, means to have no way out, mentally to be at a loss. Okay? So, and then the sea here, it's an idiom. It's all an idiom. So the sea, Mr. Weisman says, and I already knew this, the water signifies people, and the sea being a collective of waters, the sea becomes the symbol of peoples gathered into one body, political, kingdom, or jurisdiction, or united in one design. This is interesting. This is an idiom they used. A sea troubled and tumultuous denotes a collection of men in motion and war. How do you know this? Well, let's look at some other scriptures to back this up. Isaiah 57:20. But the wicked are like the troubled sea, when it cannot rest, whose waters cast up miry dirt. Okay? And then in Jeremiah 51:42, speaking of the destruction of Babylon by Persia, the Persians are referred to as the sea. Jeremiah 51:42. The sea has come up upon Babylon. She is covered with the multitude of the waves thereof. Another one, Isaiah 17:12. Woe to the multitudes of many people which make a noise, like the noise of the seas, and the rushing of nations that make a rushing like the rushings of mighty waters. Jude, speaking of the pagans that infiltrated the church, non-believers, the Antichrist, many Antichrists, pagans that entered into the church. That's all we've got our church filled with today. Let's see, Jude 12. There are spots on your feast of charity when they feast with you, feeding themselves without fear. Clouds they are without water, carried about of winds, trees whose fruit wither, without fruit, twice dead, plucked up by the roots. Raging waves of the sea, foaming out their own shame. Wandering stars, to whom is reserved the blackness of darkness forever. This is an idiom throughout the Bible, and you have to go back and you have to put this together, and you have to get references that can explain this to you. Okay, if you know Revelations, that verifies it. Revelation 13:1. And I stood upon the sands of the sea, and I saw a beast rise up out of the sea. The beast comes out of the sea. The beast is not a man, it's a system. It was Babylon, Persia, Greece, and Rome. Now the beast system has been the United States, who's ruled the world. And that's coming to an end. So as I stood upon the sand of the sea, and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his head the name of blasphemy. All these are idioms. You have to go back to understand what the 7 heads were, what the 10 horns were, and I'll explain that as I go on. Not today, but another time. Now let's look at Revelations. We're talking about the sea. Revelation 17:1. And there came one of the 7 angels, which had the 7 vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, and I will show you unto the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters, the sea. So, what are those waters? Revelation 17:15 tells you what the sea is. And he said unto me, The waters which thou sawest, where the whore sitteth, are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues, the sea. Now, I'm where I come from, I'm going to give you some lagniappe. Okay, it just means something extra. Okay, sea, I'm going to show you that the sea and the bottomless pit are the same thing. Okay, and this is I'm going to go off topic just for a second and then get back on topic. Revelation 17:8. The beast that thou sawest was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit. Go back up, and I stood upon the sands of the sea, and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns. Back to Revelation 17:8. The beast that thou sawest was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit, and go into perdition, and they that dwell near us shall wonder whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world. These are the elect that were written in that book, and a lot of people that are not written in that book will be in awe of the beast system, of the American system. So, from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was and is not and yet is. So the bottomless pit, I'm going to give you the words. Abusos is what the word bottomless pit is. Abusos in the Greek. It comes from the word bathos. Bathos means profound intellectual depth. And if you add the negative particle alpha, the alpha, in front of that, you get the word abusos. So you put the A in front of bathos, you get abusos. Okay? So what does that mean? That means no profound intellectual depth. It means no knowledge of God. This equals the sea. No knowledge of God is a group of people that are called the sea that have no knowledge of God, which is equivalent to the bottomless pit, the abyss. It's not a hole in the ground. There's nothing coming up out of the ground. These are all idioms that you have to understand to start understanding all of the Bible. Okay? So, and this is interesting. So, in his book, Mr. Wemyss agrees that the abyss, talking about the abyss, is a confused multitude of persons. The bottomless pit, the abyss, the abusos, is a confused multitude of persons. It's a group of people, the majority of the world, that are going in the wide way, that have no knowledge of God. They've made themselves their own gods. So let me keep going. Let's break this down. There shall be signs, indications in the sun and the moon and the stars, and upon the earth distress of nations with perplexity, no way out. The sea and the waves roaring, men's hearts failing them for fear and for looking after those things which are coming on the earth, and the powers of heaven shall be shaken. There's idioms all the way through here that you have to look up and study. The heart, to the first century Jewish mind, was the place of understanding. Remember that. The heavens, there's the heavens, and then there's the earth. The heavens were the ruling powers. The heavens are ruling governments, are the ruling political, are the spiritual church. They were the heavens. The Jews, when they before they fell, they were the heavens because they ruled. God was their king. They were the heavens. Now, the heavens are the ruling governments of the world. Yeah, are the ecclesiastical would be the church. That's the ruling. The plebeians are the commoners. They are the rule. They were referred to as the earth. And we get that heaven and earth. Shaken here, okay, shall be shaken. Shaken here is the word saleo. It means to topple or by implying be destroyed. So I kind of write it out. There shall be signs, indications in the sun and in the moon and in the stars. There are obvious indications of troubles in America between the federal government and the state governments and local cities. There are indications in the world that economies of nations are shaky, on the verge of financial and cultural collapse. And upon the earth, distress of nations with perplexity. Another, you got to understand it. Distress, okay, it means to be in a strait. Suneo, be in a strait, great troubles or difficulties. Perplexity, aporia, I think I might have said that, no way out, mentally to be at a loss. Is there, think about this, is there no answer for the political differences in America or around the world? Perplexity, no way out. Is there an answer for wars around the world or in America for the term civil war that's on 40% of the American people's lips? Is there an answer for famine in the world? Is there an answer for the disease of the world? No. Is there an answer for the medical tyranny that we just lived through with these mandated? These are all part of God's sword, famine, pestilence are coming to a head here right before Jesus comes. I'm not saying it's next week or next month or next year, but it's coming. So remember, the seas and the waves are roaring. Roaring means a louder It was the word akosh in the Greek. I don't pronounce these words that good, but it means a loud or confused noise. Peoples, multitudes, nations, and tongues raging, confused voices all around the earth with no knowledge of God, not understanding what's coming upon the earth. These are all idioms. Going back at Luke 21:26, men's hearts, men's understanding, failing for fear and for looking after those things. What things? Sword, famine, pestilence, war, civil breakdown, killing in the streets, killing children in schools, 200 um, producing plants that produce food, burning down and being destroyed in the United States in the last 2 years. Confused young generations who don't know that they're male or female. Parents who would bring smaller children to drag shows. Women who demand rights to murder babies. School teachers and administrators that let men go into women's bathrooms. Evil is good and good is evil. Governments like the USA pressing the LGBTQ propaganda on other nations. False teachers in American churches. Medical tyranny. All these things coming upon the earth. You think it's a coincidence, or you think it's just some evil men? Well, God uses evil men to achieve what he wants done. And that's exactly what he's doing. All these trains derailing, the poisoning the waters, the food production areas in Ohio. It's the judgment of God. It's sad, but it's true. All these things coming upon the earth because God has turned them all. Turned them all. People, multitudes, nations, and tongues, giving them over to a reprobate mind. Insanity. Now, let's look at the word insanity. A deranged, unbalanced, unstable, crazed state of mind, given to things or actions that are utterly foolish or unreasonable. Yes, God has turned them over to a reprobate mind. The governments, most of the churches, the parents, the younger generation, they're so confused. They can't think straight. Romans 1:28. And even as they did not like to retain God in their knowledge, God gave them over to a reprobate mind to do those things which are not convenient. God has done that. Deuteronomy, looking at the curses for disobedience. And they're curses, they really are. Deuteronomy 28:28. The Lord shall smite thee with madness and blindness and astonishment of heart. Astonishment of heart? How can these things be happening? I.e., school shootings, gender insanity, murdering babies, etc. How can these things be happening? Your astonishment of heart, your astonishment of your understanding, and you're blind to why it's happening. And it's madness. Few will be saved. Few will endure tribulation as the world of people and governments are in distress with no answers for the judgments of God that are upon us. Few will strive and agonize over sins. You wonder, Ezekiel chapter 9 shows how God preserves the righteous and the destruction of the wicked. This is the picture of the elect whose names were written in the Lamb's book of life before the foundation of the world. And he destroys everyone else. Unfortunately, they're in the wide way. Ezekiel chapter 9 in the Old Testament is the shadow of Revelation chapter 7, when the servants of God are sealed. And Ezekiel chapter 9 is the destruction of Israel's prophecy, okay? A picture of the nation whom God had smitten with madness and blindness and astonishment of heart, the Jews. How can this happen? How can this happen in America? The same way God has smitten the country with madness. Ezekiel 9:2. Behold, 6 men came from the way of the higher gate, which lieth toward the north, and every man a slaughtering weapon in his hand. And one man among them was clothed with linen, as a writer's inkhorn by his side, and they went and stood beside the brazen altar. This is a vision that represents Babylon coming in to destroy Jerusalem, because they were mad on their idols. Just like America is mad on their idols, money and power and houses and cars and their military proudness and its insane medical community. Their churches are filled with imagination, and they're filled with Satan's angels. Angels is the word angelos. It just means messenger. Satan's preachers are in all of our churches. They're not my churches. So Ezekiel goes on in 93. And the glory of God of Israel was gone up from the cherubim. He was divorcing Israel. Whereupon he was to the threshold of the house, and he called to the man clothed with linen, which had the writer's inkhorn by his side. The glory of God left this country in the United States years ago when Arminianism, free will, took the place of the sovereignty of God, which was the doctrine of the 1800s. Paganism ran rampant in the church, and we see what there is today. It's just full of people that imagine their God, that they can influence their God, that they can pray and change things. God does not wait on our prayers. Our prayers, what does it say when you say the Lord's Prayer? Thy will be done, not my will be done. So it was against the law to celebrate the Christ Mass, Christmas, in the early America. Christmas is Christ Mass. All the other pagan holidays like Easter, which is Ishtar, Halloween, all of them were not celebrated in the early churches in America. Look up the Wheel of the Year, okay? This is all the pagan holy days, okay, brought into the church. And the Catholics say that Mary turns the wheel of the year. There are 8 pagan holidays that God destroyed Israel for. And he's destroying America for the same way. Some of them are Mabon, Samhain, Yule, Beltane, Midsummer. Just go look at them. I'm not going to name them all. So let's go back to Ezekiel. That's some of the reasons why God is destroying this country. Ezekiel 9:4. And the Lord said unto him, the man with the acorn, go through the midst of the city, through the midst of Jerusalem, through the midst of America, and set a mark upon the forehead. This was done before they were born. The mark. God had written his words on the fleshly tables of the heart of his elect. So he says, set a mark upon the forehead of the men that sigh and cry. They agonizomai over sins, for all the abominations that be done in the midst thereof, in Israel and in America. God sealed his elect, the few in the narrow way, the libomone, that endure tribulation, and the hodos, the highway of their life. And it's God that gave them the strength to do it. Go read the rest that God destroyed in Ezekiel 9. Go look. He destroyed young and old and children and unborn because their land was filled with blood and perverseness, just like America. God said in 9:6, in Ezekiel 9:6, but come not near any man whom is the mark, those sealed with God's words written in the fleshly table of the heart. I don't think that every one of them was spared, but they were not sent to hell. They went to be with the Lord. So what is coming upon the earth? The elect will die. Like it said, being absent from the body is to be with the Lord, in the presence of the Lord. This is the last. I'm going to recap. Luke 21, 25, and 26. I'm going to put it all together. Think about it like this. Right before the return of our Lord, you will see signs, semiano, indications of things to come. In the sun, and in the moon, and in the stars, in the governments in distress, in a strait and great tribulation and troubles and difficulties, with perplexity, aporia, no way out, at a loss for what to do next, the seas and the waves roaring, the peoples, multitudes, nations, and tongues raise their voices in confusion with no knowledge of God, men's hearts failing, men not understanding what's coming. For fear, for the looking after the things which are coming upon the earth, for the powers of heaven, the world governments, leaders, the pagan American churches shall be shaken, shall be toppled and destroyed. Then they will see the sign of the Son of Man coming in the clouds with power and great glory. This is filled with so many idioms, but when you understand the idioms, you can understand what this is talking about. It's all about men. It's all about the wicked and the elect. I guess I shouldn't go in anything else. I said enough. It's like 41 minutes, and I thought this might be something like 30 minutes. But there's lots of other things I could say, but I really don't need to. But think about it. This is going to get much worse. And a lot of us are going to die. A lot of us are going to have to stand up and tell the truth and be ridiculed for it. Jesus said, if the world hated him, the world has to hate us. If you're friends with the world, you're an enemy of God. I'm not saying you have to go be rude to people, but we do not participate in the same things they do. Jesus said, if they kill me, they'll kill you. He said, if you tell the truth that God does not love everybody. Love is agape. 2 John 6 tells us that agape is walking in the commandments of God. It's what we should have done from the beginning. So when you say, have all these Christians that say, I love you. Oh, I just love you. Run. They don't even know you. They don't even know what agape is. Agape is walking in the commandments of God. It means you're not going to steal from your neighbor. You're not going to kill your neighbor. You're not going to sleep with your neighbor's wife. You're not going to be a false witness against, there's so many things. The 10 Commandments right there. And then there's so many other things that we're not supposed to do in the scriptures. Few, the Libo Monet, will endure tribulation. And only God can give his elect the strength to do it. I guess I said enough. That's all I've got today. Bye.